on the bully when cats used to harmonize like. Back on the bully when cats used to harmonize like.
Yeah, welcome back. We back. Gonna get right into this. This is white supremacy on the rise here. These dudes got radicalized. Dig into this. Let's see. Who was the Minneapolis Catholic school fruiter? Robin West.
Gunmen rocked the nation after they opened fire on a Catholic school in Minneapolis, slaughtering 2 children and injuring at least 17 others on August 27th. Robin Westman opened fire through the stained glass windows of a church at the Annunciation Catholic School before committing suicide. But who was Robin Westman? Here's what we know so far. 23-year-old Robin Westman, formerly Robert Westman, has been identified as a transgender woman from Minnesota. Westman applied to change names from Robert to Robin in Dakota County at 17 years old, according to court documents. The name change was granted in January 2020. The petition added that Westman, quote, identifies as a female and wants her name to reflect that identification. Just hours before the cowardly massacre, Westman posted a series of twisted videos on YouTube, which included a manifesto, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hare confirmed at a press conference. In one 20-minute video, Westman flips through a disturbing handwritten manifesto. In the deranged writings, it states that Westman had been suicidal for several years, but wanted to take others out too. Westman goes on to gleefully fantasize about, quote, being that scary, horrible monster standing over those powerless kids, and inadvertently confesses admiration for the 2012 Sandy Hook massacre, as well as other mass shootings. Each page is filled with unintelligible handwritten doggerel, as well as writings in Cyrillic, which include violent ramblings such as, quote, I have had thoughts about...
So right off the bat, they saying that this dude was a transgender woman. So that's interesting because a lot of people on both sides are saying that this person, people are blaming the left, people are blaming the right. It's very interesting. I'm gonna watch some news reports from both sides.
mass murder for a long time. I am very conflicted with writing this journal. The text, translated by the Post, reads in part. The writings also go into great detail about his decision to target Annunciation, where Westman's mother, Mary Grace Westman, worked until her 2021 retirement, according to a Facebook post by the church. Quote, maybe I could attack an event at the on-site church, which was ominously scribbled. Quote, I think attacking a large group of kids coming in from recess is my best plan. Then from there, I can go inside and kill, going for as long as I can. Westman's journal also contained copious amounts of anti-Semitic bile. Quote, if I will carry out a racially motivated attack, it would be most likely against filthy Zionist Jews.
So that's another interesting angle. So they're showing these this is actually like a screenshot from his, he did like a video manifesto, he did a written one. Basically, this guy was clearly a red flag. This guy was not hiding the fact that he had, violent tendencies. He had a vendetta seemingly. But it's just very interesting because it's hard to see or hard to pin down what exactly was his leaning. Maybe he had no political leaning. He was just a lone warrior, but I'm under the impression this dude was radicalized by the internet. We'll get into that later. Let's go.
Another video posted to YouTube in the hours before the massacre showed a cache of weapons, including a semi-automatic rifle and a shotgun. Ammunition magazines were scrawled with, quote, for the children, kill Donald Trump, and 6 million wasn't enough, a reference to the number of Jewish Holocaust victims.
So this is very interesting. You see, it's for the average normie, we'll say, the average person, these are like conflicting views, right? So, you could see he's very adamantly against Trump. He's very, adamantly I won't, throw any these online groups under the bus, but we all see these people. We all have an inkling what communities are pushing these kinds of narratives.
While the deranged writings fantasize about assassinating President Trump and Jews, they also reveal the motive, that killing, quote, children of innocent civilians would bring, quote, the most joy. Westman, who died at the scene of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a handgun.
Very interesting. So that's the New York Post. See what Fox News has to say. see they spin in it. Just 1 second here. So right there, they're saying this person changed their name, so that's kind of correlating with the claims that this person was a trans individual. Very interesting that because I saw the video or one of his videos where he was showing his manifesto and he was, showing his basically his plan, his blueprint. He was showing, all his firearms, all his magazines, his ammunition, and he was basically narrating it, and the things that were coming out of his mouth, you could tell this is an individual that was very hurt, that was very had a dark outlook on life, a dark outlook on the world in general. They were a very nihilistic individual. They were very negative. They didn't see much good left in the world, much positivity in the world. That's something they expressed explicitly in their manifesto when they were going through it, and also while they were showing their stockpile of ammunition and whatnot. So it's interesting. It seems like it's someone who, was radicalized in the far left communities and decided to effectively commit a violent act. But that it's interesting because a lot of lefty communities can interpret that as a right wing kind of action, especially considering you saw some of the magazines, what they said, some of the writing, the shooter scrawled into their magazines were seemingly right wing sentiments. They were right wing talking points. A lot of memeing going on those magazines. You see the difference right away between watching the New York Post and Fox. So this person is claiming to be a transgender on Fox. So you see right away Fox News. And I mean, I don't blame both sides, right? To try and politicize this and kind of get some movement going for their bases to kind of, get it really politicized, get it out in front of the story quickly. But it's just interesting how they're framing it as, this is an attack on Christians and it's an attack on Catholics specifically. And it's just so interesting because this person did demonstrate a lot of right wing sentiment at the same time. So it's just all around very peculiar situation. Now, of course, this is Fox News, so you're not gonna get anyone up here saying, "Okay, we need to call for gun control." But on the left wing media, that's gonna be a talking point. We need to get, some gun control, get guns out of these hands. And I find this such an interesting discussion because when people bring up gun control, where do you start and where do you end? Because a lot of the time, it's mostly left leaning, um, or left politically aligning people who are supporting gun control. But at the same time, a lot of these left leaning political figures are also in favor of, less policing or defund the police, if you will. We've all seen those movements. So I find it interesting that these people are advocating for taking firearms away from citizens, but they will not advocate for taking away firearms from police or military, people that they seemingly don't trust. So that's very interesting how those people see it. Why would you want people that you don't trust, i.e., the police or the government, right, to be the only people wielding these firearms? And another point is that police and military are normal human beings, normal individuals. These issues that you're seeing in the United States, these are mental issues. These are issues that, the symptom is the violence, right? But that is indicative of another issue. So to take away the firearms, right? I could understand that may be a very logical conclusion to most people, but that's like cutting off the leg because you have leg pain. It's like, okay, well, you don't have the leg pain anymore. But is that really tackling the root problem, which is mental health? Mental illness is on the rise in America. People point to saying, oh, certain countries, other countries don't have these issues because they don't have firearms. Well, they also don't have such high uh, percentage of mental health issues in their population. So I would argue that it's a lot of the movies, a lot of the content. Of course, you can't prevent that. You can't, muzzle everyone, or I should say, censor the whole country, or censor all of Western society because people can't handle, you know, viewing movies or TV shows with simulated violence. You can't, but you have to tackle the mental health at a point because online political sentiments are getting very radicalized, even on the right wing or the left wing, both alike. Both sides are getting extremely radicalized, and I see it because I run an Instagram page. I get a lot of engagement. I get thousands of comments. You know, several posts, and I see that these comments are more and more radicalized as time goes on. I've been online for years, and I notice it. Depending on which algorithm you land in, you'll get some pretty hateful comments. So an individual like this shooter here, who has expressed this when they were speaking about their intentions or when they were making these videos, they've expressed these sentiments of, you know, kind of mirroring these violent sentiments, mirroring these xenophobic sentiments. May seem harmless online, but a lot of people, if they have mental issues, this really materializes into their real lives. They truly believe these things that people say. When you get these guys go on podcasts and say, certain people are subhuman, certain people are coming in and taking jobs. That's why, we're struggling. Some people take this stuff really to heart, and I think that's really underestimated. A lot of older people, whether it be millennials or older generations, they don't understand how the internet works. They don't understand how these comment sections work, these algorithms. They don't understand how people end up in pipelines and get radicalized. Someone must have known. I mean, how isolated could this person be? They wrote a whole I mean, I'm not gonna go through the manifesto for obvious reasons, and also it's quite lengthy, but they wrote a whole bunch of letters to their family, I believe to a few friends, and it seemed like they were a close-knit family, it didn't seem like the kid was so isolated. I say kid, but this was a young adult. Didn't seem like this guy was very isolated, right? So someone must have known, right? So this is kind of I don't wanna say covering up because it's, not nefarious, not like a top-down type thing, but on a family level or on a friendly level, this person's acquaintances, these people clearly didn't see the need to, get this person help. This person obviously showed signs to the point that they're making YouTube videos, filming their armory and whispering a narration of what they intend on doing. When it gets to that point, you would think that people around this individual would have seen some sign. Absolutely, that's exactly what I was just saying. When someone goes at length to write what they did in that manifesto, this is not a person who flew under the radar. People must have seen and heard things, that this person was intending to do. See, right now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to sneak by consent to having more surveillance, more, government overreach, when really that's not the solution. And honestly, the internet is very well policed as it is. The internet has tons of AI. You can't live stream certain things. You can't say certain words on YouTube, on Twitch, wherever the heck you are. So the internet is very well regulated at this point. This really comes down to people, right? People need to pay more attention to the people around them, and that's lost. The more people get, immersed in the internet, the less people are in the real world. People need to go outside. They need to interact with real individuals because a lot of these online circles and these online worlds, this is not reality. And as you could see here from this individual, it's very easy to be radicalized online. right? And we have several cases of this just happening in this week. Yeah, y'all gotta do something with the mental health issues. That's the main problem. You can't cut the leg off because you have leg pain. It's not just, oh, because people are acting out in this way, we're gonna take all the guns. That doesn't work. People are gonna find a way to be violent. It depends. It's the person, right? How many people have firearms and don't act out in this way? People get into altercations all the time. I've been in altercations. My house is full of firearms. My house is full of knives, full of hammers, circular saws. I could take a hammer. I could take a baseball bat. The car's outside. I could break all kinds of windows. Why don't I do that? Because I'm mentally sound, or at least mentally sound enough to not do that, right? So it's not the object. It's not the inanimate object that is at fault. In American history, they used to teach children in school how to shoot. Children used to have a shooting course in school, target practice with 22 calibers, right? This violence is something that's new. This mindset, to attack a fellow man. That's what's new. It's not the firearms. Firearms have been there this whole time. And honestly, when you look at the population, right? If you step away from all this propaganda of we need to grab you the guns, if you look at the population, 350 million people. How many, events are there per year, right? See if I can get this up here. This is Rockefeller Institute of Government. Da, da, da. So, mass public shootings continue to be a concern for policymakers and the public. Although these incidents represent one of the rarest forms of gun violence, they require different strategies from both prevention and response. See, prevention is what they really need to concentrate on. A starting point to develop these is understanding the context and characteristics of mass public shootings. The fact sheet drawn from the data, which also serves as the basis of the regional gun violence research flagship policy brief on the topic, provides important insights into mass public shootings from 1966 to present. So this is 50, the number of victims 50, 200, 500. So the larger hexagons are 500. Okay. I imagine this is from 1966. Average number of deaths 3.4. Average number of injured 5.3. Mass shootings have been steadily increasing in frequency since 1966. Well, I don't know if I would say steadily. Okay, so 2025, there have been 12 so far. 2024, I mean, that is pretty steady. There's been a sharp decline between 2019 and 2025, which is quite interesting. But I mean, this is considered a steady increase. If you ask any, I mean, if this were a stock, I mean, this is a buy right here, especially this pullback over here. Not to make light, not to make any jokes, but all my investor guys will agree with that. This is definitely a steady increase. Okay. Majority of mass public shootings occur in workplaces and schools. Workplaces, 141s. Wow, that's interesting. There's a lot you can learn from these data points here. Workplaces, right? This is indicative of stressful environments. These are things that can be tackled in the workplaces, in schools. Why are these things happening? Why are employees feeling like this? Why are students feeling like this? Right? Why are students feeling like this? Shopping and entertainment, restaurants, nightlife. That workplaces, that's huge. What is that metric though? 141. I guess this is 1, 2, 3, 5. So that I guess this is the total, the number they're giving up here, the 502. So all that to say, like perpetrators. I mean, all that to say, you can clearly see this is a mental health issue. You could take away every firearm tomorrow, and again, police officers and military personnel are normal human beings. So what, you're gonna take all the firearms from civilians, but police officers and military members are civilians. These are normal people. These are still individuals that experience stress, that experience mental health issues, right? So who's to say? So y'all really want only police and military to have them? What, you think those people are flawless? And another thing, something about police, which is ridiculous. Police carry all these people that are scared of firearms. They don't know anything about firearms. Okay, I taken firearms instructional courses. Firearm safety, hunting courses, right? So I'm quite proficient. And police officers, whether it's in the United States, Canada, many other Western nations, police officers carry their service weapon with one in the chamber. These guys are in a McDonald's, they're at your local Burger King, they're at the park, they're responding to domestic issues with one round in the chamber. That basically means that their round that's ready to go is lined up with the barrel and the hammer is cocked back. Okay. So it's basically, by the grace of God, otherwise known as the safety, which is preventing that from going off at any given moment. That's considered, you know, personally, I would never carry a firearm with one in the chamber. I know many Americans do. Second Amendment Americans carry one in the chamber, but I don't think, it's such an issue. Like, many firearms instructors will tell you, if you don't have time to rack your slide, then you got bigger problems. Having one one round in the chamber versus not having one in the chamber is not going to change much between you living or dying. It's not going to determine your life or death in many situations. The fact that it's standard practice for police officers to carry one in the chamber, that in itself is a public danger. If anyone asked me if they didn't, and I'm talking about government lawmakers, if government lawmakers asked me, I would say, why are police officers carrying one in the chamber? These are normal people. What are they, robots? What are they, AI? That these people are flawless and they don't make any mistakes, don't error, right? So they're carrying one in the chamber. They're normal people. These people have firearms. So why should I have great faith in my mental health, zero self harm, thoughts, zero. It starts with respect. You respect yourself and you respect others. I respect others around me. That's why I won't harm someone who's not trying to cause me harm, right? So I have great faith in my mental health. And I don't appreciate people that want to try and grab my firearms. I don't appreciate that at all because I had to jump through hoops, flaming hoops. In Canada, you got to do all these safety courses. You got to jump through hoops. You got to, get these references. It's not easy. And to have a random Canadian voter or a random person out in some city, big city who doesn't understand the whole culture, the whole, sports shooting. It's extremely fun. A lot of people who are anti-gun, they go to the range, they enjoy themselves, they have a great time. So it's really a lack of education of firearms in general. I think if more people knew about the culture, they would be less, inclined to just, oh, we gotta grab the gun, we gotta grab the guns, you know, because why should I trust a military member or a police officer's mental stability more than my own? I'm a grown man. I don't need anyone to decide my mental health for me, right? It should be decided by people around you, right? But it shouldn't be decided by the government and voters. Anyway, so let's check out this other one here. We're gonna see here. See if we can get any other info out of this right here. I just want to see if there's any other juicy stuff I can get out of this here. 'Cause this is day of, so this will have the best info if there is any. This is an MSNBC. So I did, New York Post, arguable if it's center or not. Then we went to Fox News, which is of course right wing. Now we're at NBC, which we all know their leanings. African proverb. This is the only time these people gonna invoke African proverb. Let me tell you. But what are you prepared to do? That's the question. What are you prepared to do? Because the answer is not let's grab everyone's firearms. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. I could tell you. I'm pleading with you, right? As a Canadian, as someone who has firearms, as a Canadian who's telling you the hell that you have to go through if you end up bending the knee to these people. It never ends. It never ends. Every event that takes place, these people are coming to grab, and I follow the news reports and I look at some of these mags and I'm like, these mags, these are imported mags. These are smuggled in. They don't care. It's whatever they can use, weaponize any, stories in the media that they can weaponize and come and get your stuff. But once you start to allow it, it just snowballs. It doesn't end. So I'm telling you, y'all better start. If I, one thing y'all should do is really start making the groundwork for this, for building up mental health, right? Because if mental health is not healed, these people are not going to stop until they grab all the guns, and it's not going to solve the problem. It really will not. The fact that that both sides can weaponize a guy who has literal memes on his mags, like this dude. Let me see if I can pull this up. This guy has literal memes on his mags. This is the dude's mags. The dude has literal memes on his mags, right? Both leftist sentiment and right wing sentiment, and both. It's like this is like a treasure chest for the media. Both sides could use it. It's like a green screen. This story is just, like a cadaver ready to be manipulated in whichever direction they please. It's unbelievable, right? This guy had Maggie's. We try to grab another one. See here. Another one. See what that says. I mean, the F optics. I'm not gonna lie, that it's pretty. That's pretty funny. I know I shouldn't laugh at this situation, but this he's got literal memes on his gear. This is like a media's dream right here. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You know what the prayer of the feet is? Tackling the mental health. Stop avoiding the elephant in the room. Stop masking these issues. These issues are starting when kids are young. Kids are growing up, and the thing is, millennials have kids now, right? Millennials have kids that are in high school, and they don't know. They have no idea what is going on online. The things that these kids are exposed to. I blame parents that are not supervising their children as they're growing up, what their children are ingesting, the online circles that their children are being involved with. This is a parenting issue, it's a culture issue, right? You can't blame the people creating the content or the people. You can't blame them. They're creating a product, people are buying the product. It's up to parents to monitor what their children are ingesting. Because clearly this person who committed this act was radicalized by the injustices that they perceived in the world. That has to be corrected. If there are other people who feel that way, you don't want to have copycats, God forbid, right? These are ideas that are floating around online, and there's no structure around it for people to live in reality. A lot of these people, they're hermits. Their only interaction with modern day society or culture is coming through a screen. That's the number one issue. Because who would have thought that a person could be radicalized right wing, right? Have, Nazi adjacent sentiment and beliefs, yet attack Christians and attack children. This is a mess. This whole thing is a mess. All that while being a trans individual. If that doesn't scream uh, online influence, I don't know what does. Is everyone just avoiding, or there are two things happening here? There are people that are avoiding talking about this, and there are the people who just don't know this is taking place, that are completely naive, like the people on NBC or the people on CNN or even Fox. These are older people. They don't understand this online culture. They don't understand these online circles and a lot of these communities. What's being talked about, right? It's crazy. So we saw the chief speak earlier in the other segment. So that's what's happening in America. This is this is the new reality, right? The new normal, if you will. And they just people are hopping on it from both sides. They're blaming the trans community. The right wing is blaming, oh, you see how crazy these people are, and the left is blaming the gun. Both are avoiding the elephant in the room, right? So we're not making this up just to show just an idea of the sentiment of a lot of these people. So this is from my Instagram. This is one of the posts that are blowing up. I think this has it's got maybe 15,000 views so far. Few comments in here. Basically, this individual here, Mr. 445, I made this post, but they weren't sub-Saharan Africans though, because there's this new idea that sub-Saharans didn't create or have any sort of development or innovation. This, of course, is untrue. But for the most part, the people spouting I should say, not lack of knowledge or nonsense, these are Americans. These are people who are, not well educated. This is just fact. This is well documented. If I look at here, so as I've shared this before, approximately 54% of American adults read below a sixth grade level, according to analysis of U.S. Department of Education data. So approximately 54% of American adults read below a sixth grade level, right? And this is data that comes out of 2024, 2025. So this is very recent. And about 20% of those people are considered illiterate, which means they cannot correctly read and analyze things such as news articles, headlines, and their reading comprehension is so low that it impedes on their everyday life. 21% of Americans suffer from that. So when we end up on Instagram, right, and I post things like this, because we have guys like Nick Fuentes and others going around and saying that Africans didn't discover the wheel and had no knowledge of two-story buildings. So I make a post like this, and this guy, this genius over here, says this doesn't mean she. That's a straw man fallacy. Okay, he must have learned that this week. Straw man fallacy, new terminology for him. That's like saying the Vikings were black because there were carvings of Vikings on black wood. Okay, well, very interesting there, buddy, because it's not that the reliefs or the carvings themselves are the color black. Um, we could clearly look at the features of these bronze statues here and see that these are African features. These are clearly, as you would call them, N words. So I don't know how, very conveniently, all of a sudden we're going to ignore such features and pretend that these are um, made by non Africans. Or a good argument that they could use is perhaps these were Europeans depicting Africans in their art. So this is crafted in Nigeria, the 13th century, mind you. So this is the year 1200 on, right? Until the year 1300 would be the 13th century, well before any Europeans made it to Africa, which is, I believe, the 15th century. After the period of the 1400s, was the Portuguese were the first to arrive. So this is the 13th century. So interesting, but they still managed to cope. So all these artifacts are stolen by British troops when they invaded. That was later on in the 1800s, and they are in British museums. So I post this with these clearly African lips and African features, and this individual decides to say that it's a straw man fallacy. Not sure he understands what that is. So someone responded to him. Someone responded and said, "Stop playing dense. We see those features." I mean, I thought it was pretty obvious. To which he replies, "There are no features that could proof it, not proof it. You're just coping because you're subhuman." So clearly, you could see that this person um, freshly learned the term straw man fallacy if they don't know the difference between proof and prove. So I thought you guys would enjoy that. So why I'm bringing that in, the relevance here is this is what people are exposed to. And I have hundreds of comments like this because I get thousands of comments on my posts. Some of them get tens of thousands of comments on my Instagram posts. So I get hundreds of comments like this. I don't reply to any of them, of course, because why would I jump into the pig pen with these Ironically, they're calling this person the subhuman who their avatar is a dog. So I mean, I guess technically they're correct because this is a dog's account. But this person throwing around terms like subhuman, well, I would never get into the um, linguistic ring with an individual like this because personally, I believe that they are subhuman, not because of their race, but simply because of how they express themselves and how they aren't correctly using the word proof instead of proof. So I ain't getting in that ring. I ain't arguing with that person. So all this to say, this is the type of things that children are exposed to online. A lot of these people, these youngins, these youth are exposed to online. They see these things, they think that stuff is based. They like that stuff. They think it's good stuff. They get that in the lobbies of these games, video games, right? So there's a lot of white supremacist sentiment online. And again, I always plead with the white people because I personally love white people. I grew around white people. I live in a white culture. I've been to, in school, I went to school with mostly whites, Greeks, Italians, Jews, whatever, European Jews, Ashkenazi, of course. Um, I've been to university. All of these areas are majority white, right? So I got no problem with white people, and I understand them. So all I'm asking is that white people need to start understanding the other side of things where this stuff is really happening. People are not making this up. It's blown out of proportion a lot of the time, and it also is weaponized in order to excuse people's behavior. That is for sure. But to pretend this stuff doesn't exist, these type of sentiment, these types of people online or offline, because these people are real people, but this is expressed adamantly online. This is pushed online and it's allowed to flourish, right? Not much you could do. I mean, you need free speech. I'm not saying everything should be censored, but this is a root issue. Why do these people think like this? Why do they think it's okay to think like this? What is making them think like this? These ideas are coming from somewhere. And, that's another story for another day. We could dive deep into, you know, American culture. What type of uh programming is put center stage, what type of programming is promoted, how are other communities and other ethnicities and other races um portrayed in the United States, in these Western cultures. It's mostly the United States. This is mostly American media that promotes these ideas. And then you end up with a guy like 445 over here who's regurgitating these same talking points when, as I showed you, Americans are not usually in a position to be educating anyone on who is subhuman or who is, more noble or elitist. These are people who have a 54% literacy rate or a 54% above a sixth grade level literacy rate, right? And these people don't. The fact that Nick Fuentes can get on a debate with no pushback and say that Africans, before Europeans reached Africa, Africans did not discover the wheel and did not have knowledge or did not have any construction or architecture passing two stories. No construction of two-story building is preposterous. Anyone who thinks that through, that's utterly ridiculous because long before the United States was established, young ass country, right? Long before the United States was established, Africa, India, China, these places have been trading for thousands of years. So you're telling me, a place like places that have these, marvelous structures. Even if you talk about, ancient Rome had some old architecture. You're telling me even in these, the year 300, the years 500, the years 1200 AD, nobody traveled to these regions. Nobody saw. Even if you were going to make the argument, even if I would grant you, okay, Africans themselves didn't discover the wheel, which I'm not granting, but even if I were to grant that and grant that they did not have any two-story building knowledge, would they not have traveled? No one traveled, no one went to or from these other empires to see their structures and say, okay, like we're gonna replicate that at the very least. No one replicated that. Nobody saw, they're doing trade, right? This is international trade between India, China, Africa, right? All the African nations, right? The Nile River. This was in the agricultural ages, right? This was agriculture was the main thing, right? And the Nile River was the largest freshwater source in the whole region. Telling me these people weren't traveling and trading and exchanging architectural secrets. So you have to be very lowbrow, low intellect to even believe a talking point like that. But hey, when you're dealing with people who have a 54% reading below sixth grade level, that's what you end up with. And that's how these people get radicalized. So we'll move on to the next segment here, where we see Mr. Raja Jackson. This is the other side to a multifaceted coin, more of a die. I don't think it's a coin. It's not two-sided, right? This is a lot of pieces to this puzzle, folks. So we have Rampage Jackson's son, Raja Jackson. Now, this dude, he's been in the news a lot this week because he attacked a wrestler, and people are saying black fatigue and all types of things. Which, hey, what do you expect? This doesn't look good. It's very aggressive, heinous act, and he deserves to go to prison for this. This guy, this is clear, in my opinion. This is attempted murder, right? Let's check this out. Let me restart it. Okay, so right off the bat, this is fake news that the guy's already saying. I don't blame him because maybe he didn't have all the facts. What actually happened is Raja Jackson was not scripted to be in this wrestling situation at all. He was just going to see these fights. Maybe he was doing some brand marketing or doing some networking. Who knows? But he was just at this fight, just kind of. He's a kick streamer, so he's got a career on kick. MMA fighter, and that was his thing. So he's going to, I guess, touring fights, checking out fights. So he was not contracted to be part of this wrestling event. So this is like poor, poor, poor management of the event here because these guys, no one's pulling this dude off for way too long. Arguably, you could say, right, that maybe they didn't know that this wasn't scripted because at this point, I didn't go deep enough into that. This part, he was scripted at this point, right? At this point, he was scripted. Originally, when he first got to this event, he was not um, scripted or he wasn't contracted to be in the fight. How he ended up getting into written into the script is because they had a bit of a beef. So before the match, before the event, Raja Jackson showed up and a bunch of the wrestlers were outside, having whatever, beers or whatever, energy drinks, whatever they're chilling. And Raja showed up and the wrestler here that he's bodying right now, this wrestler kind of, did an aggressive thing to him, which we'll see in a bit here. And Raja took that wrong because he's like, "Yo, I'm not a fighter. I'm not part of the wrestling show. Like, what's up?" And this was essentially his revenge. So the event organizers scheduled, or I should say scripted him to get his revenge, but scripted revenge. So he was supposed to come into the ring after that whole altercation took place outside and kind of get his revenge. But the revenge was obviously supposed to be scripted. He was supposed to body slam the wrestler and just do, like some scripted punches or whatever. But this dude body slammed him for real, right? Because when a wrestler body slams someone, they body slam them flat, right? Or they body slam them butt first. They kind of hold them so they make sure that the person is ready for the fall. He just body slammed him like it was MMA. And the dude fell on his head and he was knocked out right away after the first body slam. So right there, he was off script. Right from the jump, he was off script because he body slammed the dude on his head and he was out cold. So by the time he's throwing all these punches, the other wrestler is completely out cold. So that's what happened when Raja arrived, and he's streaming on Kick, right? He's streaming on Kick. So Kick streamers or any Twitch streamers, whatever, live streamers, IRL, in real life streamers, they basically film their whole life, everything they're doing. They're going to a restaurant, they chill in, they had a club, everything is filmed, everything is live. They have a chat. So essentially, their whole life is scripted in a way because they're feeding off their chat's feeding off them. There's a back and forth and crazy stuff happens. Some of it's scripted. I'm talking aside from wrestling, just streaming life in general. Some of it is scripted, some is not. So in this particular scenario, this was not scripted, but the wrestler now, this is the pro wrestler, he thought that Raja was a scripted wrestler because he saw the camera crew, he saw his entourage, so he thought this is a fellow star. So this wrestler, the victim, I believe his name is Psycho, something like that. I'll look it up in a sec. This pro wrestler took it upon himself to take a beer can, and mind you, this is a fake beer can, right? This is a beer can, not necessarily a prop, but it's a beer can that he already cracked open and he's kind of depressing in his hand because this is a performer. This guy is a wrestler. He's a professional wrestler. This was not beef. This was no ill will towards Raja Jackson, right? So he crushes the can on his head, right? And when you see this happen, right? Any dudes that know fighting, you know, or understand physics, you see what he's doing here. He's holding his head. This is part of the act, right? He's holding his head. He's stabilizing it so he doesn't get any neck injury from this performance. And he's crushing the can in his hand, right? So it appears like it breaks over the guy's head, which there is contact made, don't get me wrong. But this is not, it didn't cause him any injury. You could see it here. Let me see if I could slow it down. So you see that? The guy, Raja's head barely moves, right? Because again, the wrestler here, he protects his head, right? He stabilizes his head and neck and he crushes it. He makes it very performative here. He's raising one leg to show like he's giving more force into the hit. So this is how wrestlers do their thing. So he's like, "Oh, you don't know me?" Raja's like, "Nah." Raja doesn't know what the hell's going on. And he cracks this beer on his head, thinking that this is, scripted. It's gonna egg up the show, get everyone going. Raja did not like that. Raja took offense to that. So you hear his entourage saying he's not a worker, bro, and holding his hand, trying to prevent him. You see the wrestler is like, "What the hell? What the helly?" He's like, "What's going on?" see his dudes are holding him back. Raja in this moment is all business. All business. He's like, "Yo, what the hell?" Like, could you imagine? You don't know what the hell's going on. You a dude, you from the hood, you bout it. This dude is bout it, right? Raja is bout it. He's not playing. This dude's a real killer. He's a gladiator in real life. That's his profession. He's MMA fighter. This guy is he's a warrior. But some dude just cracked a beer on his head. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. So he's like, "Yo, I'm a crack this fool." So that's what happened. If you heard that, the wrestler apologized. Said, "Yo, I'm sorry. I didn't know you weren't part of the show. I seen you come up with all those cameras. Yo, I'm trying to. This is his career. He's trying to be a good actor. He's trying to play it up. He's trying to. This dude's trying to be a star, right? He's a former U.S. veteran. He was in the army. He had PTSD, and he explains how he went into this wrestling avenue to kind of clear his head, right? So he's like, "Yo, I'm sorry. I thought you were a wrestler. I saw all those cameras. I thought this was like I'm doing a bit. I'm doing a skit here. Like, but yo, Raja's furious. So you see, he apologizes. They shake hands, right? The beef is seemingly over, right? But Raja is still cheese. Raja is still cheese, and this is where I segue into. This is the online influence. This is someone who clearly was radicalized by a lot of white supremacist sentiment online. Because I can tell you, I'm nowhere near his reach or his audience size, and the things that I deal with are unbelievable. I just showed y'all. I just showed y'all. I just showed y'all this, right? This is from my comment section when I posted this, clearly an African statue, right? And someone gets in my my comments and says, "Oh, you guys didn't do that because you're subhumans." Now, for the average person, a comment like that is shocking. At least it's shocking, right? But for someone who's mentally ill, this is make or break. This is something that can radicalize someone like that. Someone who's mentally ill, they can't let this stuff slide off their back. They're seeing that day in day out. They're creator. They're streaming on Kick, right? And they have all these monkey comments and bananas in the chat. Like, I laugh it off because I know these people are mentally unwell, and they need that outlet in order to feel better about themselves throughout their day. I get it, right? But someone like Raja clearly does not understand this. And he may have been, you know, feeling very slighted by this whole exchange. And there's a lot of racialized politics, going on 2025 in America. America is not a joke. Black man in America is no joke. People are not making this up. It's blown out of proportion many times, but people are not making this up. There's a lot of hate, a lot of hateful people, and not everyone processes that hate the same way. So you got this dude who's a real killer, right? His profession is taking people out in the ring, and he's experiencing all these types of these chats saying, "Yo, you can't let that go. Yo, you really gonna take that?" So he's got mentally ill individuals on both sides. You got mentally ill individuals saying, "Yo, you got to get your get back. You need to get back at this dude. Don't let him play you like that." And then you got dudes putting monkey and bananas in the chat. So this dude's fuming. He's like, "I get it now, but this is his dude. I don't know if it's his manager or what." As you can see, Raja's not having it. Raja's like, "Oh, it's all cool," but this dude's still plotting. He's still plotting. He's not having it. So this is where they bring up the idea like, okay, that was effed up. So you know what? We're gonna let you get in the show. They think they're dealing with a normal individual. They think they're dealing with a person that's got a full deck. They don't know that this guy's a loose cannon. And that's the thing, like, yo, I'm not blaming homeboy, I'm not blaming dude whatsoever for what happened to him. I think that what Raja did obviously was heinous, unhinged, violent, and he should, he's gonna face consequences. He live streamed it. He was very proud of it. He didn't have remorse. I think he should suffer the consequences of his actions. But that being said, you can't be out here playing with people. You don't know who you're gonna fall on, who you're gonna land on, who is gonna. You don't know that when I was learning how to drive, you know, my grandfather was a great driver, and he always used to tell me, "You drive defensively. You drive like everyone on the road is an idiot. You don't go driving around like everyone is an expert driver. You have to be ready at any moment for someone to do something stupid. That's how you should go through life. When you see strangers, you don't know what these people are capable of. You don't know what their day was like, their week was like. You don't know what their experiences are. You can't be playing with people. So sadly for this dude, he took it upon himself to do a skit, and this is how it turned out. See, here he's talking to his chat. This is him streaming on Kick. So this is him talking to his chat. His chat, they're having the back and forth, him in the chat, and he's basically saying like, "Yo, I'm tired of people playing with me." This is, I believe, after the crazy knockout, right? And he's basically justifying it, saying, "Yo, people play with me." Watch just to get a gauge of where this man's mental is, where this man's mental is at. Just to get a gauge. Listen to this phone call when I believe it's his manager or someone in his crew calls him and says, "Yo, the dude is like not waking up. Like what you did was messed up." Watch how he responds. So his boy's like, "Yo, what you did was messed up, and it's on video." And he's just like, "Yo, that pissed me off." Like this is a person who's suffering from arrested development, right? I have, a background psychology. I have medical professionals in my family. I understand this stuff quite well. This is an individual that you can tell this is a person acting as a child. This is not a mature person. This is not a grown man. He big, he buff, he's grown, but mentally, this person is suffering from arrested development. This is not a person who understands the consequences of their actions. This is something that you learn very early in your life. He's like, I understand that, but now they can't wake him up. He's like, I understand you were upset, but they can't wake him up because dude bounced from the event and his boys are still there, like picking up the pieces. So you see that? His boy just said he's in the ring flatline, bro, and he's like, my bad. This person doesn't understand the consequences, doesn't understand the gravity of what just took place, right? Or the unbalanced response of force. If you would have cracked the dude right away, someone smacked a can on you, you don't know them, you smack them right there, that's justified. That's why I talk about the firearm stuff. Like, yo, I don't care what people say. If someone's trying to harm me or take my life, good luck. But that's a different story. That's self defense. That you could argue it in court, go bing bang, whatever, you get your day in court, right? But he let it slide. He let it seem like everything was cool. And then he took his revenge in the ring and went overboard. I don't know. I can't sympathize with that. I have no idea how that feels to feel like a failure of a father right there, because that is all this boils down to parenting at the end of the day. The environments that your children have been exposed to, you know, how they develop like this, and they're just not mature whatsoever. Not a mature bone in their body. These are the types of people that are loose cannon. Like, imagine this person with a firearm. This is where people get into these issues. That's where you saw in the last segment when I was talking about how people can be radicalized online. They have access to a firearm. It wasn't the firearm, it was the fact that they were radicalized online and their mental health deteriorated because of that, right? And they started seeing the world in a skewed view, or had a skewed view of the world. And then they acted out on that skewed view, right? So the root of the problem is the skewed view, right? So imagine Raja Jackson had a firearm. This is the type of person that'll just clap you over a road rage, over a minor dispute. So it's not the firearm, right? It's people like this. Why are people walking around like this? Underdeveloped, loose cannons. Crazy. Shout out to this dude. What's this channel? Varalix. This dude got 1.3 million views on a thousand subscriber channel. So congrats to him. That's crazy. That is crazy. Homeboy blew up with that one. Speaking of 1.3 mil, let's see. 2.25 mil subscriber channel Abba and Preach. Check out what they had to say. I like to get different perspectives. Anything that happens, I like to look at right wing media. I like to look at left wing media. That's how I stay balanced and unbiased. Damn, he looked like Sauce Walker in that picture. So this is a little bit more context. So this is the wrestler, the victim. So he joined this Knox Pro gym, and he was a veteran. So he was really doing this, to just take his mind off things. He had PTSD. Homeboy was just trying to do his thing. Yeah, you see like the difference. That's the body slam, right? That's like how a wrestler body slam, right? You see he's holding him. So this dude is prepping for the drop, right? He's tapping him. They make it very theatric. He's tapping, let me go, let me go. He brings him up, right? Completely rotates him, and look how he falls. He falls completely flat, right? So that's the scripted body slam. It's not real. Wrestling is not real. It's a performance. So these dudes are all, they're helping the guy flip him over. They're prepping the guy that's about to get slammed. He falls flat on his back. You know, Raja, when he body slammed Homeboy, he body slammed him straight on his head, and that's what knocked him out. Shout out to Abba. I'm liking the dashiki. Yo, Rabba's Rabba. Abba's been getting based recently. Abba is based. Yo, I don't watch Abba and Preach very often because I don't watch much like drama stuff or like a lot of channels they nothing against them. I'm not hating or anything, but it's just not my thing. It's not my go-to stuff to watch, like stuff about other content creators or streamers. But when they do stories like this, I catch them, or they're doing some good some dating content. I like to catch them. But shout out to Abba with his drip. Let's go. So we're getting more video here. So we saw a little bit more of the lead up. He's like, "Oh, where's so and so?" So he's streaming. See, this is from his stream, Raja Plus on Kick. So he's like, "Where's so and so?" And he's like, "You don't need to worry about him. You need to worry about me." So he's performing right now. This is right before the can smell. Psycho Stu. Yeah, so we covered that in the last segment. So he thought, because he saw the camera crew, he saw the whole entourage, he thought he was part of the show. We're just getting more context here. Shout out to Abba and Preach. Like, these dudes ain't got a lick of sense. This is why these dudes without management, this is not a professional person. This guy is lucky that his dad is Rampage Jackson and he got a management team. Because this is like, have you never encountered like the outside world before? The guy is just, even if someone did that to me, right? And I'm at an event, there's 101 ways to deal with that. I said it before. Like, you scrap the dude right there, you smack him back right there, which is purely justified because you don't know what the hell is going on. Or you talk it out with the guy man to man, which did take place. And then they schedule you in the show, you do the show, you get some publicity, you get some footage for your stream. But this is just a dude that has no business sense. This is just, see, dude is just listening, but none of this is going in. It's going in one ear and out the other. He's just nodding, and he whole time, homie's plotting. Whole time. What was going through his head here when he's agreeing to this? Saying, "Hell yeah, yeah, let's get in the ring." Yeah. I want to know if from here, if he knew that he was gonna try and off this dude. He apologized multiple times. You can see it. Dude has no ill intent. No ill intent. He messed up. He's messing with a stranger who we didn't know, but no ill intent. What is homeboy wearing? This guy, he had the wrong event, dressed like that. Dude dressed like a freaking southern stripper, female strip club. But as you can see, look, that's the side of his head where it took place. As I showed earlier, the guy protected his head. It wasn't a real can smash. You get smashed over the head with a can for real, there's gonna be some open skin. Shout out the vibe over on where you at? Kick. Shout out the vibe on Kick. Let's go. So you see dudes are trying to, smooth everything over. They thought everything was cool. He's agreeing to getting on script. Yeah, and this is exactly what I was referring to. Look at Homeboy. He's in his chat. Homeboy is in his chat. So you see, now I'll take that back. Maybe he really genuinely did accept that apology. 'Cause that's another factor. I'll backpedal on that, right? Because he appears to be all cool with it, and he now checking the chat. You see, Abba did some more digging, was able to find the full stream. Everything appeared to be cool. And then he's checking his chat. See what he said? It didn't even hurt. Why did it not hurt? Because it was a performance. So he does not understand this, clearly. He doesn't understand that that was a performance. He still thinks it was a genuine, breaking the beer over his head. And and his chat is probably dumb as doornails, right? These dudes, a lot of these guys that get in these chats that are gonna egg on someone to commit violence, they can't be the sharpest tool in the shed. Can't be the brightest bulbs. So the guys that are egging him on, they definitely don't understand that that was scripted or that was staged. These are the types of dudes that think wrestling is real. Yo, you see this? Wow, I did not see this. I already knew he was egged on by his chat before seeing all this. That's what's crazy. Yo, this to me confirms his chat radicalized him in real time. This needs to be studied. People need to understand this. I'm telling you, older millennials and older generations need to understand this internet culture. This stuff is not a joke. It's not a joke. See, he's like, that wasn't staged. He doesn't understand. 50 subs to knock him out. That's great. I am not taking any accountability away from him. He's his own man. He did this. He did this to himself. He put himself in this position to attack that man the way he did. But the fact that he's saying 50 subs to knock him out and dudes in the chat are agreeing with this, that's what egged him on. How is no one talking about this? I think it's difficult to bring this angle because people are going to think that you're excusing his behavior or trying to, sweep under the rug what took place. Nah, two things can be true at the same time. What he did was terrible, heinous, and wrong, and he should face consequences. But he also got radicalized by his chat. Beta. I'm just playing. Doesn't want to play it. Beta. Look at his face. He looks very accomplished. That's a real killer. Tell you, the internet is not for everyone. Internet is not for everyone. Y'all need to grow up. Y'all out here underdeveloped, arrested development on the internet, not gonna end well. Every time. This is just saw it in both cases. You saw it with Minneapolis in the guy's manifesto. I'm sure you guys could go and read it wherever. I'm sure it's available still. It's just very hard to find now, so I just kind of bailed on that whole thing. I got enough info out of it, but honestly, you could clearly see like these people got radicalized by the internet, and I blame like a lot of these talking points, and I'm gonna point to white supremacy because that's something that touches home, and it's something that can't be ignored. As I said, there are things that I could be biased about because I'm a black male. I could close my eyes and explain away all the violence or all the problems that are in those communities, but I don't. There are a lot of issues for sure, and I touch on them. I speak about them at length. But white supremacy is a real thing, and you see it online. You see it all the time. You see it in my comment section, right? I showed you all my comments. This is stuff that happens every day, right? These are my comments. These are the types of people. And for someone like me, I see this, I laugh, I close my phone, I don't even respond. These are my comment section. I get hundreds of comments like this on any given post. But some people, they have mental issues. They get comments like this, it pushes a button, and that stuff builds up. And eventually, these people act out and they end up doing things like what you saw in Minneapolis, or they get radicalized and end up committing acts of violence like Raja. So this is you know broadly sweeping. It could touch random kids that no one knows, or it could touch kick celebrities, MMA fighters. So people need to really understand this internet and get a grip on this and start tackling this mental health. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. Really not a joke. That being said, y'all, we gonna log off. We end the stream. Thank you for joining. If you just joined it, you could rewind that, play that back, go to the front of the screen because this was a good one. Let me tell you. We covered how white supremacist sentiment permeates online, disrupting and destructive into the youth online, disruptive and destructive, right? You can rewind that, enjoy it, and like the stream, give a follow. If you're over on Kick, if you're over on Twitch, if you're over on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like, share. Make sure to share it to a community member near you. And if you know any people that are demonstrating any of these violent, even if it's violent rhetoric, right? Violent rhetoric can, can really manifest itself in the physical realm when people start acting on it. So if you know people like this, talk to them, try to help them. You'd be surprised. I've spoken to many people. I've prevented several tragedies. People that were, you know, experiencing thoughts of self harm. People who are experiencing thoughts of violence. Several instances were instances where I was in school and a kid brought a weapon to school, and I had to convince the kid, that's not the path you want to go down, right? So don't be scared, don't be shy. It's sometimes these people are just looking for someone to reach out to them and tell them that, hey, look, you're appreciated, right? Life's not perfect. People are not always going to be happy with you. People are not always going to like you. Everyone's not going to like you. You're not always going to come out on top, but that's how life is, right? This shooter was 23 years old, had a full life ahead of him, but according to him, there was nothing left for him to live for, right? But you got to convince your friends and family, look, there are ups and downs. Hey, look, next week, you don't know, you could win the lottery, right? You have to play to win, but it's just an example. You never know what's going to knock on your door. Your life could turn around overnight. So it's not worth it to go down these dark paths and think that there's nothing left for you. You can make a change in the world. If you think that the world looks helpless and hopeless to you, starts with you. You could start changing the world. Starts with one person at a time, right? So reach out to these people, convince them that they're needed, they're wanted, and hopefully we can prevent these things in the future, right? When it comes to people like our guy in the first segment in Minneapolis, or to Raja, right? I feel like a strong structure of people who care about these people could easily prevent these types of situations. That being said, we're gonna call it. Have a good night, y'all. Peace.